What happens when one of Britain's most charming actors sits down for what he thinks will be a friendly morning chat, only to face a host who seems determined to tear him apart on live television? It only took one pointed comment about his personal life, delivered with a smirk that made studio audience members gasp, to set off a chain reaction that would end with cameras still rolling, a microphone being removed, and a Hollywood star walking off set, while millions watched in complete disbelief. Hugh Grant walked into the studio that morning, expecting the usual warm welcome that Lorraine Kelly's show was known for. He had been on the program before, always greeted with smiles and easy questions about his latest projects. The atmosphere in the studio felt different this time, though. There was a tension in the air that he could not quite place. Lorraine sat behind her desk, flanked by two regular panelists. On her left was Ross King, the entertainment correspondent who usually handled celebrity interviews with gentle humor. On her right sat Andy Peters, known for his upbeat competition segments. Both men looked unusually serious as Hugh took his seat on the famous orange sofa. "Hugh Grant, everyone," Lorraine announced to applause that seemed somewhat muted. "Thanks for joining us this morning." "Always a pleasure, Lorraine," Hugh replied with his characteristic smile, settling into the sofa cushions. "Is it, though?" Lorraine shot back immediately, her tone sharp enough to make Hugh's smile falter. "I mean, you have not exactly been enthusiastic about doing press lately, have you?" The audience went quiet. Ross King shifted uncomfortably in his seat. This was not the usual Lorraine Kelly warmth that viewers tuned in for every morning. Hugh laughed, though it sounded uncertain. "Well, I am here, are not I? Looking forward to talking about the new film." "Right, the film," Lorraine said, leaning back in her chair with an expression that could only be described as dismissive. "Another romantic comedy. How original. Tell me, Hugh, do you ever get tired of playing the same character over and over again?" The studio audience gasped. This was supposed to be a promotional interview, not an attack. Hugh's publicist, standing just off camera, looked stricken. "I think each role has its own unique qualities," Hugh responded carefully, his British politeness holding firm. "This character is quite different from—" "Oh, please," Lorraine interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. "You play a bumbling, charming British man who wins over a woman. We have seen it a dozen times. Do you not have any range as an actor?" Andy Peters jumped in, clearly trying to defuse the situation. "I think what Lorraine means is that fans love seeing you in these types of roles. You have perfected the genre." "I know what I meant, Andy," Lorraine snapped at her own panelist. "I do not need you to translate for me." Andy fell silent, exchanging a worried glance with Ross King. Hugh sat up straighter, his expression hardening. "I apologize if my career choices disappoint you, Lorraine. I was under the impression I was here to discuss my new project, not to be criticized for my body of work." "Your body of work," Lorraine repeated with a laugh that had no humor in it. "Let us talk about that, shall we? Let us talk about how you have been coasting on charm for 30 years, while actual actors are out there doing real work." The camera operators looked at each other in confusion. This was not in the script. This was not how Lorraine Kelly shows went. Hugh took a deep breath, visibly trying to control his temper. "I find it interesting that you would say that, Lorraine. Tell me, what makes an actor more legitimate than another? Is it the genre they choose? The awards they win? Or is it simply your personal opinion?" "Do not turn this around on me," Lorraine said sharply. "We are talking about you." "No, you are talking at me," Hugh corrected. "You have not asked me a single question that requires an actual answer. You have just made statements designed to provoke." "Maybe you need provoking," Lorraine shot back. "Maybe someone needs to finally call you out." "Call me out for what exactly?" Hugh asked, his voice rising. "For having a successful career? For making films that audiences enjoy? For working consistently in an industry that is notoriously difficult? Please enlighten me." "I think that is a bit unfair," Ross King interjected, his his voice gentle but firm. Hugh has done some really wonderful performances over the years. Florence Foster Jenkins, A Very English Scandal, Paddington 2. Ross, I am conducting this interview, Lorraine said coldly, not even looking at him. If I want your opinion, I will ask for it. Well, maybe you should want my opinion, Ross said, surprising everyone with his directness. Because what you are doing right now is not interviewing. It is attacking. I beg your pardon? Lorraine turned to face him fully now, her eyes blazing. You heard me, Ross said, his voice steady despite the tension. Hugh is our guest. We invited him here, and you have done nothing but insult him since he sat down. This is not right, Lorraine. How dare you question how I run my show, Lorraine said, her voice dangerously low. Someone needs to, Ross replied, because this is not the show I agreed to be part of. Ross held up his hands in surrender and sat back. Hugh's jaw tightened. Perhaps we should just discuss the film and keep things professional. Professional? Lorraine scoffed. That is rich coming from you. Let us talk about professionalism, Hugh. Let us talk about your reputation in Hollywood. The stories about you being difficult on set. The directors who have said working with you is a nightmare. That is simply not true, Hugh said, his voice rising slightly. I have worked with the same directors multiple times because we have good relationships. Where are you getting this information? I have my sources, Lorraine said with a smug smile. I have been in this business a long time, Hugh. I hear things. Hearing gossip and reporting facts are two different things, Hugh replied, his composure starting to crack. You are making accusations on live television without any evidence. Andy Peters tried again to salvage the interview. Why do not we show a clip from the new film? I am sure the audience would love to see what Hugh has been working on. We will get to that when I am ready, Lorraine snapped at Andy. Right now, I am having a conversation with our guest. Unless you would like to leave the panel, Andy? Andy looked down at his desk, clearly frustrated, but unwilling to challenge his host further. Lorraine turned her attention back to Hugh. What I find fascinating, Hugh, is how you have managed to maintain this image of being Britain's sweetheart when your personal life has been such a mess. The audience made collective sounds of shock. This had crossed a line. My personal life is not up for discussion, Hugh said firmly. I came here to promote a film, not to be personally attacked. Everything is up for discussion when you sit in that chair, Lorraine said, pointing at the sofa. You celebrities think you can just come on our shows, plug your projects, and leave without answering any real questions. Well, not on my show. Real questions? Hugh repeated, his voice incredulous. You have not asked me a single question about the film. You have spent the entire time insulting me and my career. I am asking the questions that viewers actually want answers to, Lorraine insisted. They are tired of the fake interviews where everyone just smiles and pretends everything is perfect. They want authenticity. Authenticity, Hugh said slowly, would be treating your guests with basic respect, something you seem incapable of doing. Ross King leaned forward, speaking directly to the camera. Maybe we should take a quick commercial break, and... We are not going to commercial, Lorraine cut him off. Hugh and I are just getting to the good part. Tell me, Hugh, is it true that you demanded script changes on your last 3 films because you thought the writers were not smart enough to write your character properly? That is absolutely false, Hugh said, his face flushing with anger now. I collaborate with writers. That is part of the creative process. You are twisting normal film production into something sinister. Am I? Lorraine asked, leaning forward with gleaming eyes. Or am I just the first person willing to call you out on your behavior? See, I think you have gotten so used to everyone treating you like royalty that you cannot handle someone asking tough questions. Tough questions? Hugh nearly shouted. You have not asked me a single legitimate question. You have hurled insults and made up stories. This is not journalism, Lorraine. This is a hit job. The studio had gone completely silent except for their voices. Even the crew had stopped moving. A hit job, Lorraine repeated mockingly. How dramatic. Very fitting for an actor. Is this the part where you storm off? Because that would really prove my point about you being difficult, would not it? Hugh stared at her for a long moment. You know what, Lorraine? I have done hundreds of interviews in my career. I have sat through awkward questions, silly questions, repetitive questions. I have always been professional, always been polite, always done my job. But I have never, and I mean never, been treated with such blatant disrespect as I have been treated by you in the last 10 minutes. Oh, here we go, Lorraine said, rolling her eyes. The poor mistreated celebrity. No, Hugh said, standing up from the sofa. The professional who was invited here under false pretenses? Your producers told my team this would be a standard promotional interview. Instead, you have used this platform to make baseless accusations and personal attacks. Andy Peters stood up too, though he looked uncertain about what to do. Hugh, maybe if we just... Sit down, Andy, Lorraine ordered. Let Hugh have his little moment. Little moment? Hugh said, his voice dangerously quiet. You have just spent 15 minutes trying to humiliate me on national television. You have insulted my work, my character, and my integrity. And for what? Ratings? To make yourself feel important? I do not need to make myself feel important, Lorraine said, standing up now too. I have been doing this show for years. I have interviewed royalty, politicians, the biggest stars in the world. You are just another actor promoting another forgettable film. Then why invite me at all? Hugh demanded. If my film is so forgettable and my work is so terrible, why am I here? Because your publicist begged us to have you on, Lorraine said with a cruel smile. Apparently, the other shows were not interested. Hugh's publicist gasped audibly from off camera. That was a lie, and everyone in the industry would know it. Ross King finally found his courage. Lorraine, that is not fair. We reached out to Hugh's team. We wanted him on the show. Stay out of this, Ross, Lorraine warned, but her panelist shook his head. No, I will not stay out of it, Ross said, standing up from his desk. This is wrong. Hugh is our guest. We invited him here, and you have done nothing but attack him from the moment he sat down. How dare you, Lorraine said, whirling on Ross. I am the host of this show. You are a panelist. You do not get to tell me how to conduct my interviews. This is not an interview, Ross said firmly. This is bullying, and I want no part of it. The audience began to murmur. Some people started clapping for Ross. Lorraine's face turned red. Fine. You can leave too, Ross. Anyone else want to walk out? Andy? How about you? Andy looked torn, but he slowly nodded. Yeah, actually, I think I do. This is not what I signed up for. Both panelists removed their microphones and walked off set, leaving Lorraine alone at the desk. Hugh watched them go, then looked back at Lorraine. Does it make you feel powerful, Lorraine? Treating people this way? I treat people the way they deserve to be treated, Lorraine said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. The walk-off of her own panelists had clearly shaken her. No one deserves to be treated like this, Hugh said. Not me, not your panelists, not anyone. You have built a career on being warm and welcoming, on being the friendly face of morning television. But this is not friendly. This is cruel. Cruel? Lorraine challenged, though her conviction was fading. I am just being honest. Maybe that is something you are not used to. There is a difference between honesty and hostility, Hugh replied. You can be truthful without being hurtful. You can ask challenging questions without making someone feel worthless. Clearly, you have not learned that distinction. Do not patronize me, Lorraine said, her anger flaring again. I have been in television longer than you have been famous. Then act like it, Hugh said simply. Act like someone who understands how to conduct a professional interview. Act like someone who respects the people who agree to come on your show. Members of the audience were now openly talking to each other, some shaking their heads in disbelief at what they were witnessing. "You know what your problem is, Hugh," Lorraine asked, leaning forward over her desk. "You think you are above criticism. You think because you have made a few successful films, you should just be praised all the time." "I do not think I am above criticism," Hugh said, his patience clearly wearing thin. "I welcome thoughtful critique. What I do not welcome is baseless attacks disguised as journalism. There is a difference, and the fact that you cannot see that is deeply troubling." "Oh, spare me the lecture," Lorraine said, but she sounded defensive now. "You are not going to make me feel bad for asking difficult questions." "You did not ask difficult questions," Hugh corrected her. "You made accusations. You spread rumors. You insulted me repeatedly. There is a difference between a challenging interview and what you have done here today." "Everything I said was fair game," Lorraine insisted, though she was clearly losing ground. "You are a public figure. You open yourself up to scrutiny." "Scrutiny, yes," Hugh agreed. "Unfounded attacks, no. You accused me of being difficult on set without a single source. You claimed other shows did not want me, which is demonstrably false. You questioned my integrity as an actor and as a person. None of that was backed by anything resembling fact." "I have heard things," Lorraine said vaguely. "Heard things from whom?" Hugh pressed. "Give me one concrete example. One director who said I was difficult. One show that turned me down. One piece of actual evidence for anything you have said today." Lorraine opened her mouth, then closed it again. She had nothing. A producer rushed onto the set, whispering urgently in Lorraine's ear. She shook her head and pushed the producer away. "We are not cutting to commercial," she said loudly. "If Hugh wants to leave, he can leave. But I am not going to apologize for doing my job." "Your job is to interview people, not to abuse them," Hugh said, reaching for his microphone pack. "I will be having a word with your producers about this ambush." "Ambush?" Lorraine laughed harshly. "You cannot handle a real conversation, so you call it an ambush. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You celebrities are so pampered, so protected, that the moment someone pushes back even a little bit, you fall apart." "A little bit?" Hugh said, removing his microphone completely now. "Lorraine, you have spent this entire segment attacking me. You have not asked about the film, about my co-stars, about the director, about anything related to why I am actually here. Every single comment has been designed to provoke and humiliate." "I ask the questions that matter," Lorraine insisted, but her confidence was wavering. The studio audience was clearly on Hugh's side now, and she could feel it. "The questions that matter," Hugh repeated, shaking his head. "Tell me, Lorraine, what matters about spreading false rumors? What matters about making a guest feel unwelcome? What matters about driving your own panelists off the set?" Lorraine had no answer for that. She stood behind her desk, arms crossed, glaring at him. Hugh placed his microphone on the sofa. "I came here in good faith. I was looking forward to a pleasant conversation about a project I am proud of. Instead, I have been subjected to one of the most unprofessional interviews of my entire career. And I've been doing this for over 30 years, so that is saying something." "Then leave," Lorraine said coldly. "No one is forcing you to stay." "You are absolutely right," Hugh said, straightening his jacket. "No one is forcing me to stay, and I will not stay somewhere I am not respected. I have too much self-worth for that." He started to walk toward the exit, but Lorraine called after him. "Running away, Hugh? Very brave." Hugh stopped and turned back. "I am not running away, Lorraine. I am choosing not to participate in whatever this is. There is a difference between running away and refusing to be mistreated." "You just cannot handle tough interviews," Lorraine taunted. "I have handled tough interviews," Hugh said calmly. "I have sat down with journalists who asked challenging questions about my work, my choices, my past. I have had conversations with interviewers who genuinely wanted to understand my perspective, even when they disagreed with me. Those are tough interviews. This is just mean. The audience erupted in applause. Lorraine looked around, seemingly shocked that they were supporting Hugh over her. "Oh, so now you are all on his side," she asked the audience. "He is walking out in the middle of my show, and you are applauding him." "They are applauding because they recognize what is happening here," Hugh said. "They can see that you have crossed a line. Your own panelists saw it too. That is why they left." "My panelists will be replaced," Lorraine said sharply. "And so will you. I will get another guest who actually knows how to handle an interview." "I hope they are prepared for what you put me through," Hugh said. "I hope your producers warn them that this is not going to be a normal interview. That would be the ethical thing to do." "Do not talk to me about ethics," Lorraine snapped. "You have no right to lecture me." "I am not lecturing you," Hugh said tiredly. "I am simply stating facts. You invited me here under one pretense and delivered something completely different. That is not ethical. It is not professional, and it is not acceptable." Another producer appeared, this one looking more senior. She approached Lorraine with urgent gestures, but Lorraine waved her away too. "I do not care what the network says," Lorraine told the producer loudly. "This is my show, and I will run it how I see fit." The producer looked distressed, but backed away. Hugh watched this exchange with a mixture of sadness and disbelief. "You know what the saddest part of all this is, Lorraine? You had a good thing going. People trusted you. They invited you into their homes every morning because you seemed kind and genuine. But this behavior, this is going to make people question everything they thought they knew about you." "I do not care what people think," Lorraine said, but her voice cracked slightly. "I think you do," Hugh said gently. "I think you care very much. And I think somewhere deep down, you know that what you have done here today is wrong." Lorraine said nothing, just stared at him, with an unreadable expression. "I genuinely hope you figure out whatever is driving this anger," Hugh continued, "because this is not who you used to be. Or maybe it is, and you have just been hiding it well. Either way, I feel sorry for you." "I do not want your pity," Lorraine spat. "It is not pity," Hugh said. "It is genuine concern for another human being. Despite everything you have said and done in the last 20 minutes, I still do not wish you ill. I just wish you would treat people better." With that, Hugh turned and walked toward the studio exit. The audience applauded again, louder this time. Some people even stood up. Lorraine watched him go, her face a mask of fury and something else, something that might have been shame. "Fine," she shouted after him. "Leave. See if I care. You are just another entitled celebrity who cannot handle the heat." Hugh paused at the studio door. For a moment, it looked like he might turn around and respond, but then he shook his head, pushed open the door, and walked out. The studio fell into chaos. Producers rushed around, audience members talked loudly amongst themselves, and cameras kept rolling, unsure whether to cut away or keep filming. Lorraine stood alone at her desk, breathing heavily. She looked around at the disorder she had created, at the empty seats where her panelists had been, at the audience members who were now filing out of the studio. "We are going to commercial," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. But the damage was done. The interview that was supposed to be a simple film promotion had turned into a complete disaster, all because a host forgot the basic principle of treating guests with respect. Ross King and Andy Peters stood in the hallway outside the studio, talking quietly. They had never walked off set before, never defied Lorraine like that, but they both knew it had been necessary. Hugh Grant emerged from the studio moments later, his publicist rushing to his side. He looked drained, but composed. "I am so sorry," his publicist said. "I had no idea she was planning that." No one could have known, Hugh replied. That was not an interview. I am not even sure what that was. Ross and Andy approached him. Hugh, we want to apologize, Ross said. We should have stepped in sooner. You stepped in when it mattered, Hugh said, shaking both their hands. Thank you for that. I know it could not have been easy to walk off your own show. It was not our show in there, Andy said. That was something else entirely. That was not the program we signed up for. Hugh nodded. I appreciate your support. Truly. Inside the studio, Lorraine sat at her desk during the commercial break, staring at nothing. A senior producer approached her. Lorraine, we need to talk about what just happened, the producer said carefully. Not now, Lorraine said. Yes, now, the producer insisted. You just drove off one of the biggest stars in Britain, along with both of your panelists. The audience is leaving. The phones are already ringing with complaints. This is a disaster. He was being difficult, Lorraine said weakly. No, he was not, the producer said firmly. We have it all on tape, Lorraine. Every word. You attacked him from the moment he sat down. You gave him no chance to talk about his film. You insulted his work, his reputation, his character. This was not an interview. This was an ambush. Lorraine finally looked up at the producer. I just wanted to ask real questions for once. There is a difference between asking real questions and being cruel, the producer said. You crossed that line today. Multiple times. The floor manager called out that they were coming back from commercial in 30 seconds. Lorraine took a deep breath. What do I do? You apologize, the producer said. To the viewers, to Hugh, to Ross, and Andy. You own what happened here. The floor manager counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2. Lorraine looked into the camera as the red light came on. Her face was pale, her usual confidence gone. Welcome back, she said, her voice unsteady. As you can see, we have had some unexpected developments this morning. Hugh Grant has left the studio, as have my colleagues Ross King and Andy Peters. She paused, clearly struggling with what to say next. I think it is important that I address what just happened. That interview did not go the way anyone expected. Things were said that should not have been said. Lines were crossed that should not have been crossed. The studio was eerily quiet. I invited Hugh Grant here to discuss his new film, and instead, I turned it into something else. Something confrontational and uncomfortable. That was not fair to him, and it was not what our viewers tune in for every morning. Her voice wavered. This show has always been about warmth and connection, about making our guests feel welcome and our viewers feel like part of a community. What happened today went against everything this program stands for. She looked directly at the camera. Hugh, if you are watching, I owe you an apology. You came here in good faith, and you deserved better than what you received. Ross and Andy, you were right to walk off. I put you in an impossible position. The camera slowly pulled back, showing the empty set, the vacant chairs, the disorder of a show that had completely fallen apart. We are going to take a break, Lorraine said quietly. When we come back, we will try to salvage what is left of this morning. The red light went off. Lorraine slumped in her chair. Outside the building, Hugh Grant climbed into a waiting car. He looked back at the studio building one last time, then shook his head and closed the door. The car pulled away from the curb, carrying him away from one of the strangest and most uncomfortable interviews of his long and distinguished career. Behind him, the chaos continued, a reminder that even most established shows can fall apart when basic respect is forgotten.